Green Lantern number 24 is written by Jeremy Adams with art by Zermanico, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., and letters by Dave Sharp. The title of this issue is Because I'm Happy. Apparently Hal sent Nort ahead to deliver the necklace full of source energy to the other Green Lanterns on Oa, and is content to hang out on Earth with Carol until everyone else is finished building the new central batteries. Carol comments on how much practice it takes to generate highly detailed constructs, and that she can only really make 5 or so different ones that look right. Hal's impressed and says his limit was 2 when he was first starting out. Hey, maybe that's why he always stuck to bubbles and boxing gloves back in the day. They're simple designs that are easy to get right. Carol's time with the Justice League has been good for her. She's learning a lot about what she can really do, and the kind of sacrifice that comes with this kind of power. She's had superpowers for a very long time, but only recently started trying to do the job of a superhero, and it's put a lot of things into perspective for her. Carol apologizes to Hal for being so upset about his inability to make her and their relationship a priority. She always hated the way he would just fly off, headfirst into danger, leaving her behind. But now she's the one flying headfirst into danger, and she gets it. She gets what it must have been like for him. Being a hero is a way of life, and it comes with responsibilities that nothing else can get in the way of. That's why so many heroes have terrible love lives. Hal doesn't say too much about it, he just seems happy that she understands, and he kind of brushes it all off by saying everybody makes mistakes. He doesn't really care too much about the past, not when they're together right now. I'm glad they're finally on the same wavelength, though I don't think any of this absolves Hal for his jerkish behavior from earlier in this series. If he had been willing to slow down and have an honest conversation with her about all of this sooner, maybe we could have bypassed his whole creepy stalker ex-boyfriend phase from the beginning of this run. Or maybe Hal bearing his soul wouldn't have worked. Maybe Carol needed to see it all for herself by living the life of a hero to truly understand. Regardless, they scoop up some criminals and go to deliver them to Coast City Prison, which has been rebranded as Sunnyside Prison Camp? Everyone, including the inmates, are unnaturally happy and welcoming. The warden even invites them to stay for lunch. Hal wants nothing to do with this. He'd rather go hang out with Carol and eat Chinese food. But Carol wants to stay because Batman says it's important to investigate anything suspicious. And Hal, God I love this, Hal just says, yeah, well Batman has no life, let's go do something fun. As they explore deeper into the prison, Carol gets a weird feeling. It's as if something is resonating with her through the emotional spectrum. They follow that feeling down to the lower level, where they find a doctor standing in his laboratory with a strange glowing creature. The doctor says the little creature is an axolotl named Happy. It seems to be a perfectly normal animal, except for the fact that it's radiating pink light that seems to be affecting the mood of everyone in the prison. Carol guesses that Happy must be just like Nathan, tapping into a piece of the fractured spectrum that's never manifested before. The power of happiness. The doctor explains that a year ago, a new prisoner arrived wearing strange armor. This was the guy from the very beginning of the Jeremy Adams run, the one who attacked Coast City wearing old Manhunter armor he bought online, remember? Well, the doctor took some of that armor and used it in his industrial laser, testing out new methods of refracting light. Happy was used for target practice to test the new laser, and he really just expected the little guy to get cut in half. But instead, this mad scientist operating out of a prison basement accidentally forced this little axolotl to connect to the emotional spectrum. It probably has something to do with using the Manhunter armor to refract light for the laser when the armor was already being powered by the willpower portion of the spectrum, or something. I call him a mad scientist, by the way, because Hal finds a vivisected corpse under a sheet on the operating table. It seems the doctor has been experimenting on the inmates for quite some time, and now thanks to Happy's power, none of them have a problem with it. Hal puts Happy in a bubble and explains that they have to take him somewhere safe just in case he explodes or something. Which is true, though even if it wasn't, they couldn't just leave Happy with the doctor, who very clearly needs to be arrested. And up until now, everyone including the Doctor has been very agreeable, as you'd expect of people under the influence of intense happiness. But then Hal had to go and take the source of their happiness away, and that's when all hell breaks loose. The Doctor immediately erupts with the orange light of greed, claiming that Happy belongs to him. The orange light spreads like wildfire throughout the prison, and every single person who used to be under Happy's influence now burns with possessive greed that refuses to let Happy go. Prisoners and staff alike swarm the lanterns, coming at them like a ravenous tidal wave. Hal tries to hold them back while Carol keeps Happy safe. But then something interesting happens. Just like before, Happy resonates with Carol's power, and together they're able to free the warden from the orange light. So she tries it again, filling the whole room with the light of the star sapphire, filtered through the light coming from Happy. And just like that, the entire prison is back to normal. Hal makes sure the warden takes responsibility for the Doctor, while Carol marvels at their discovery. When the powers of happiness and love mix together, they produce a light that can undo the effects of other emotional powers. It didn't affect Hal's powers at all, but it did undo all the orange greed spreading throughout the prison, so maybe this is a quote-unquote good feelings versus bad feelings sort of thing, which is a little too reductive for my liking, though I can't argue with the fact that happiness and love are very closely related, and they are pretty much the exact opposite of feelings like sorrow and disgust, so it does make sense. Speaking of that, something that kind of bothered me at first is the fact that the light emitting from Happy looks exactly like the light of a star sapphire, to the point that I thought this was going to be a new love entity or something. But now I think it kind of makes sense. Happiness and love share a color because they're so closely related. Looking back at last issue, the power of disgust looked yellow, possibly suggesting a close relation to fear. I kinda like this idea. It solves the most annoying problem with inventing new kinds of lanterns, which is coming up with a good color for their light. Though I do wonder if this will make fight scenes harder to parse now that some emotions share colors with other emotions. Whatever the case, Hal is content to take Carol and her new Pokemon partner out for Chinese food before they all go to Oa to plan their next move. Out in space, Kyle's weird team is traveling at light speed aboard the Interceptor, only they can't stop and have no idea where they're going. Some outside force sent a surge of energy to the ship, activating its light speed drive, which allowed them to escape from danger. But it also engaged the autopilot and is taking them deeper and deeper into uncharted space. The crew takes this opportunity to have the kind of conversation that's definitely going to be plot relevant, but is way too awkward to ever actually happen normally. But hey, at least we get confirmation that Kyle is in fact still a White Lantern. He's just using his willpower to suppress it because the current state of the emotional spectrum would cause his White Lantern powers to go out of control. So Kyle can still go Super Saiyan if he needs to, but it could do more harm than good. The ship finally arrives at its destination, a very old and run-down space station with a Green Lantern emblem on it. Kyle's never seen it before, and when they land, a series of arrows light up along the floor and walls, guiding them to a chamber deep within the facility. Odyssey hates everything about this, and can't believe everyone is actually willing to just go along and see what's at the end of the trail. What they find is a large tank full of green light. Kyle's ring reacts to it, his power levels spiking off the charts. Superboy thinks they should bring it back to Oa. Dan Garrett warns against disturbing unknown relics, since his origin story was all about him exploring ancient ruins and taking a blue scarab he found, officially starting the Blue Beetle legacy on Earth. Odyssey continues to be very uncomfortable with all of this. But before they can decide what to do, the group is swarmed by a dozen or so manhunters. A huge fight breaks out, and the heroes are outnumbered by at least 3-1. Kyle thinks the manhunters are probably being powered by the energy in that tank, so they should find a way to shut it down. Odyssey hears that and decides to just break it. She literally throws a rock at the tank, shattering the glass. It's not just any rock, it's the Philosopher's Stone, which has the alchemical ability to transmute stuff into other stuff. I wonder if that matters at all here, or if it's just meant to be a neat Easter egg. Odyssey was introduced as this time-traveling thief who has items from across the ages. but they haven't really played with that idea very much, so maybe this is just a nod to her foundational concept. Either way, a rock is a rock and the light erupts out of the tank. The Manhunters instantly fall to the floor as all of the power rushes out of them and joins the massive energy that's been released into the room. But surprisingly, the energy leaves. It rushes out the door, flowing down the corridor towards the Interceptor. The energy permeates the ship, and when Kyle's team goes aboard, they find bits and pieces of the Interceptor coming together to form a body. A voice speaks to them, saying that its energy was scattered across space before eventually collecting itself in this ancient Owen station. This had the unfortunate side effect of activating the station's Manhunters, who were dormant until they began tapping into this new power supply. But then the Interceptor came into range, and it simply had to reach out to the ship that's come to mean so much to her. Her name is Aya, and she's finally home. This was a huge surprise, which we honestly should have seen coming. Aya used to be the Interceptor's artificial intelligence, and thus has always had a strong connection to the ship, and back in issue 19, Hal talked about how the ship's speed might be hindered by Aya's absence. And then suddenly, when the Interceptor is too slow to escape certain doom, something empowers it to regain its max speed? The signs were all there. And the method of her return, or I guess resurrection, makes sense, because the final episode of the animated series shows her evaporating into particles of light. I worry that this won't mean anything at all to people who didn't watch or like Green Lantern the Animated Series, but I'm very happy that Aya finally made her debut in the main continuity of DC Comics. Now, despite all of that, I do have problems with the way they chose to handle Aya's introduction. Even with the little bit of foreshadowing they did, it still feels like she just showed up out of nowhere, which again, makes it a great surprise. But that prevents it from feeling like the big moment of emotional payoff that it should have been. And a big part of that is the fact that Aya herself means nothing to the characters who found her. I mean, come on, why is this the group of characters who discovers Aya? None of them even knows who she is. Okay, maybe Hal could have told Kyle about her, but so what? That doesn't mean Kyle knows or cares about her. And there are 3 characters in the Lantern books right now who care deeply about Aya, one of whom has been agonizing over how to find her. And none of them could be there for this? Even if Hal is busy, Kilowog and Razor could have been out there looking for her, maybe even in the Interceptor. It really feels like there's been a conscious effort to avoid fully reassembling the cast of the animated series and letting them on board that ship together. Maybe they were waiting for Aya to return, so the whole crew can reunite in a big, impactful moment. But this issue honestly makes me worry that they're going to let the opportunity for what should be a very big and emotional reunion pass them by. I hope I'm wrong, I really do. But we're about to start a big crossover between Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps, and when I think back to how many seemingly important things were just glossed over during the Civil Corps storyline, I don't have a whole lot of hope. And that's issue 24. I definitely need to know what you think about this one. Were you surprised to see Aya suddenly come back? Does it bother you that none of her friends from the animated series were there when it happened? How do you feel about the way the power of happiness is being represented? Tell me all about it in the comment section down below, subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this, and follow me on Blue Sky for more of my thoughts on comics in general. Until next time, thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan, we'll talk again soon.